we are living in unprecedented time. Since 2 years ago, the world has been going through very major challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic, which became a global crisis in the first quarter of 2020, is still raging as we speak. And again, earlier this year, the Ukraine crisis set in with the war between Russia and Ukraine launched on February 24 of this year. The war itself will not happen too much of a global problem, although it will happen to some extent, some problem. But the crisis was magnified and amplified by the sanctions that have been placed, and the fact that the war also affected Ukraine in many other ways. As you all know, Russia and Ukraine are today the breadbaskets of the world. They produce most of the world's wheat, corn, sunflower, and a number of other items. The same thing applies to agrochemicals, especially fertilizer. Africa is very dependent on all of this. Many countries in Africa import most of the wheat and fertilizers from Russia and Ukraine. Tourism arrivals from Russia and Ukraine support the economies of many African economies. So with the war and the sanctions that followed, all of a sudden, all these became threatened. So the effect has been rising food prices, challenging economic situation. There are indications that the continent may well go back into recession. So our board had to act, and on the 26th of March, they approved a program that we have put in place to support African countries at this time of crisis. That is the program we call Ukraine Crisis Adjustment and Trade Finance Program for Africa, which is in an amount of $4 billion net. We expect that with the $4 billion, we should be able to support up to $16 billion. We say this based on our experience in implementing past emergency interventions. We expect to leverage partnerships and to use structures to be able to expand the ability to intervene with the $4 billion that we have approved. We are convinced that something urgent and massive has to be done, because food is a very sensitive issue on the continent. It can lead to political crisis. It can lead to social upheavals. We think we've had enough of all of those. And we take the opportunity to call on the international community to join us, join the effort that Afreximbank is making, join the effort that African Development Bank is making with the $1 billion they announced for growing wheat on the continent. This is really a call to action, because we see every day requests from companies, from countries. As I speak today, we have more than $15 billion in financing requests from across the continent, and it is rising as I speak to you. So although we've made our own modest contribution, we are determined to do all we can, working with our partners, not only to deal with the urgent short-term demand, but also to use the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement as an engine to make Africa more self-reliant going forward.